In a previous video, I showed you how to use AI to create video documentaries about your ancestors' lives. But what about the why behind their moves? What forces drove your great-grandfather to leave everything behind in Ireland, England, or Germany and end up in a growing city in the United States or a mining town in Australia? I used AI to generate a documentary podcast on migration patterns in my family tree. But this wasn't a dry academic talk on general migration. I gave the details of a specific ancestor who emigrated from Ireland, arrived in New York, and then moved and settled into a small town in New Jersey, becoming quite prosperous. I told the AI tools that this is my family, this is a blood relative, and her migration journey is personal to me. I got a 40-minute podcast with the presenters doing a deep dive into historical, social, and cultural reasons that shaped that journey. Then I asked for a 9-minute video as an overview. The AI tools that I used weren't making stuff up, like ChatGPT is well known for doing. This wasn't fiction. The documentary was based on serious academic studies from university presses and scholarly articles about migration patterns of that time. It's as if I asked a history professor to talk me through the context of my ancestors' journey. It was fascinating, and I'm going to show you how to do this. All you need: family tree, free ChatGPT, and another free AI tool called NotebookLM. It's NotebookLM that ensures that your documentary is based on scholarly research. Look over my shoulder and follow what I do. There are 4 steps. Step 1, pick a person in your family tree and grab some details of where they moved from and to. Step 2, use free ChatGPT to find scholarly articles about the social history of that time and those places. Step 3, use free NotebookLM, an AI tool from Google, to import your historical sources and the details of your ancestor. And finally, you'll steer NotebookLM into providing a full documentary podcast and a shorter video overview. First step is to go to NotebookLM. Let's just stick NotebookLM into Google here, and I'll go to the main page. So I'll click on this main page, and then I'll click on Try NotebookLM. You just need a Google account for the free version. So you come to this page here. What you want to do is you want to create a new notebook. So I'll just use this button up the top here, this Create New button. The first thing you see, it does pop up this Add Sources. I'm going to just close this. We will come back to this page, but I'm going to close it. With NotebookLM, you get 3-panel page. Over here on the left will be your sources, uploaded PDFs, documents, links to websites. Here, I'm not going to do anything here with this middle pane, and this is basically the chat. I'm going to ignore it completely for this exercise. And over here on the right is where you generate your audio podcast and the video overview. It's also where we start with providing the AI with our ancestor details. Click the Add Note button. This opens up a scratch pad here where you can type in the details of your target. At this point, you want to choose an ancestor, and we'll put the title of the note as the name of the person in your family tree. So you should pick someone from your tree who migrated from one region to another. For me, a branch of my tree left Ireland in the 1860s and 1870s and mostly settled in New York City. But one of this family moved to a small town in New Jersey where she married and lived out her life. Now, there's a mountain of historical research about Irish migration into New York, to Boston, to Chicago, but I was intrigued by this small town of Westfield, New Jersey, that I had never heard of, and I figured it would be a good challenge for the AI tools. So let's say you picked your own target in your family tree. Now you need to enter some specific details to guide the AI, and I've got a template that you can use. At this point, I'll mention that you can download all the templates and prompts in this video. There's a link in the description below. So I'll fill out this template now for a woman called Annie Gamble. I've downloaded and opened the PDF to get this template here. Now it's not that long, so you can just type it in from the screen. I am going to copy the template, Control-C in the PDF. I want to copy this template into NotebookLM, but I find if you copy straight from your clipboard now, it doesn't format it properly. So I'm going to open up Notepad on Windows. It's text edit, I think, on Mac. So here's Notepad. I'm going to paste Control-V here, and from here, I'm going to Control-C again, go into NotebookLM, where I've opened an empty notebook. Here I am over here, and now I will just paste my cursor here into this area and Control-V, and I get my template. And now I'll just start overwriting the details from my family tree. For me, the migrant's name is Anna Gamble. Now she went by the name Annie. I'm going to put a title in of her name, Annie Gamble. Then I will overwrite migrant's name with Annie Gamble. Born in year in a location. I just copy birth location, and the birth year is 1848. I don't need to get more specific than that. So I'll just overwrite year with 1848, and then I'll just overwrite address, region, country with her birthplace. Now, you may not have the exact location, but you do want the country. Yeah, given that she's emigrating from, and a region in that country would be useful because historical sources may find that specific regions in a country tended to go to specific places, and that could be an interesting part of the documentary. The next line is where she arrived into in the country that she's migrated to. She's arrived into New York. Now, she didn't stay in New York, but that is the port destination. And then what year? I wasn't able to locate Annie in a shipping passenger manifest, but what I do have is that in one of the census records, it states when she arrived into the United States, and that year is given as 1867. Now, that might be it if she had settled in New York, but she moved on to New Jersey. I don't know the exact year, hence why I've said that it's by 1874. And the reason I say that is that I have her marriage record, 1874, in a town called Cranford, New Jersey, which was basically beside Westfield as far as I can tell. But after that, all of her residents, and these are from the census records, are Westfield, Westfield, Westfield until she dies. So by 1874, had settled in. I'll override this, make that Union County. Definitely you want the region and the country here. At this point, I'm going to mention that she got married and her spouse is Harry Willoughby. I'm going to not put the full address because I want the AI to focus on Westfield and not the neighbouring town. I'll just put New Jersey in 1874. She died in same place, Westfield, Union County, New Jersey, USA. I'll toggle back to her life story, and her death was in 1917. The next part is optional, and you may not have the details. I have these details from the census records. If you have them, it's good to provide the context for the immigrant experience. Native tongue, it's listed as English in the census. Able to read, the answer is yes. Able to write, the answer is yes. Children, she had 5 children. Now she's listed as a housekeeper in the 1880 census. And then she doesn't have entries for an occupation in the later censuses. In the case of my target person, all her children were born in Westfield, Union County. Some of her children have been born in Ireland and some in New York and then later in New Jersey. I would have put that in as extra lines. But that's it. That's what I'm putting in for Annie Gamble. And now here's the important part. This is a note. I want to ensure NotebookLM uses it as a source when it's making its documentary, which means I want it to be over here. Down here, this button, convert to source, hit convert, and see over here on the left, Annie Gamble is appearing as a source for NotebookLM, and NotebookLM has gone and put a summary or narrative of her details as a concise biographical sketch into this window here. A little shamrock, I guess, is for Ireland. So that is the first note that I'm providing as a source for my target person. So I'll go a little faster for the spouse. Back into my template, copy the details again. I'll close this note and you see it here. I'm going to add a new note, clicking the add note button. This pops up the scratch pad again, and this is for Harry Willoughby. I'll just paste in over here. I will title the note Harry Willoughby, and that is the migrant's name. And I'll copy over the details from my family tree. So Harry, born in 1842. I don't actually have a full birth address for Harry. One census record says he was born in Ireland, another says he was born in England. I'll go with England. United Kingdom. I do know that he arrived into New York, and in Harry's case, it was in 1868. From his marriage to Annie, I know that he had settled by 1874, his marriage year, and once again, it is Westfield. Married Annie Gamble, New Jersey in 1874. Copy this down. 1936. From the census records, native tongue English. He can read, he can write. They both share their children. And this is where it gets, I suppose, interesting for Harry in that he is, in 1880, he's listed as a gardener. So 1910, go view that, scroll down. He's listed as a contractor in the excavating industry and he owns his home. Contractor, what was that? Excavation industry. By 1910 was an employer and owned, I'll say, their house. And that's enough for Harry. Once again, down here, I'll convert to source. Now notice that NotebookLM has put in this little extra piece. I didn't tell it explicitly. Will it be experienced a career progression shifting from a gardener in 1880 to an excavation contractor in 1910, at which point he was an employer and a homeowner. And this career progression for himself and for Annie, it does inform their immigration experience. So I'll close that. I'll close this. And that is the end of this section. I want the documentary to discuss my ancestors' migration journey in the wider context of emigration from Ireland to the United States in the 1860s, but I'm also interested in her further migration within the United States. NotebookLM is great at sifting through weighty scholarly works and presenting analysis and discussion. In my experience, it's not so good at finding those weighty scholarly works. Despite being a Google tool, its search or discover feature isn't great. So I'm going to use ChatGPT to find two sets of scholarly works. I'll get ChatGPT to give me the links, and I'll hand those links to NotebookLM. I'm on the free version, and I am going to go into a temporary session so it doesn't remember what I've done before. You don't have to, but this is just so that it's doing it fresh, like you'll be doing it. So I'm going to walk you through two prompts. One is for emigration from one country to another, and the other one is for migration within a country. I'll start with the intra-country immigration. Now you can pause screen and type this in, changing the details that I've highlighted in yellow, or you can download my prompt pack and copy and paste. I am going to copy and paste, but I will go through the different parts. Control C. Go to ChatGPT, Control V. I'll quickly go through this line by line. You need to make specific changes for your target person, but you also might want to make another few tweaks here and there. Find 6 open access scholarly articles of books on social, economic, and community factors influencing Irish women, change accordingly, who emigrated from Ireland to New York around 1867. Of course, you change the geographic details and the dates. Why 6? I really want about 4, but asking for 6 lets me throw away 2 if they're not up to scratch. Why not 600? There's no point overloading the free tier of NotebookLM. I got good results with 6. You can experiment with more if you choose. Follow these steps. Step 1. Search in real time using the web tool. That's the instruction I needed to make sure that the links were genuine, otherwise it was giving me nonsense. Include only works about emigration from Ireland to the United States. Change the geography accordingly. I found without being explicit, I was getting works on emigration from Ireland to Australia and Argentina. Check that each source is freely accessible online, opens directly, and provides the full text without a paywall or membership. Without this, I was getting links for articles that were behind academic membership paywalls. Include at least one source about County Cavan or Ulster specifically. There's going to be more material available on all of Ireland. I'm just looking for one source to be more specific. For my target person, she emigrated unmarried as a woman. If she was a member of a married couple, or if she was a man, she would likely have a different immigrant experience. Change the details for your target accordingly. The next one is maybe a little contentious. Discard any source that primarily focuses on extreme poverty or violence, unless it also provides substantial analysis of social, economic, or community life. Why have I got this instruction? Well, without it, I found that almost every source focused exclusively on the most tragic stories. Irish women fleeing the famine, ending up in terrible circumstances in New York, living awful lives in penury and surrounded by violence. And yes, this absolutely happened to many, but the historical record seems skewed towards documenting crisis and tragedy, while the stories of people who quietly led ordinary lives are perhaps not as frequently the subject of academic work. This line is to give more balance. If you know that your target person did live through the worst experiences of a migrant, then by all means exclude the line. Scroll down. Provide one sentence summary for each source. If you don't put that in, ChatGPT, which tends to be quite verbose, will provide analysis of each of the documents. Omit this if you want to learn more about the source material, but I want NotebookLM to do the analysis. And finally, do not include any source that fails these checks. That line was advised to me by ChatGPT itself to make it double check its work. Otherwise, it was giving me false links. So that is the prompt. I will submit this. Thinking longer for a better answer is good to see. Don't skip, let it take its minutes. So that took 41 seconds. I greatly speeded it up here. Let me scroll down and take a look at the results. It is worth reading through the one sentence summaries to decide if you want to omit any of these. For example, this first one sentence summary says that the text is on how Irish immigrant women in New York navigated maternity and medical services. Now, for my target person, I happen to know she had all her children outside of New York in New Jersey, so that may not be so relevant. What I can do is I can click into the link and take a look to see if I really don't want to include it or not. So I'm going to just take them all back into my prompt pack, but I'm going to scroll down to get prompt for migration within a country. It's very similar to the first prompt in terms of most of the instructions, right? Copy this back to ChatGPT, paste, and I will hit submit. I'll let you into a little secret. Your prompts may do better if you like this video, so go ahead and hit that like button. Thinking longer for a better answer? If you're on the free tier and you've been working away in ChatGPT doing other things, you'll likely be dropped down to the less powerful model. It's probably worth doing this particular exercise on a fresh day where you are with the more powerful model for a number of prompts. Taking a quick look at the items, I'm delighted to see that there is a history of the town of Westfield. Here we go. Immigration and ethnicity in New Jersey history. That includes discussion of Irish immigration into New Jersey. Just one more difference, I didn't tell it how many to find. I didn't say 6 specifically, and it's actually decided to find 6. Just for consistency, I will amend the prompt in the prompt pack to say 6 there too. Here is my NotebookLM notebook. I just have the 2 sources at the moment over there on Annie and her husband, and I want to add these sources that I've located using ChatGPT. So I'll click the add button, and these are all web links, so nothing to upload. So down here in this box, link, they're all website links, so click on website and just paste the URLs. So I go back into ChatGPT and grab the URLs. Into ChatGPT here. At this point, I should say that I tried to get ChatGPT to give me the plain list of the URLs that it had found so that I could very easily just copy and paste from here. It hallucinated and made up links that just either didn't exist or they were two completely different things. That one isn't in the above list. I'm going to scroll up and I'm going to grab the links individually. By just clicking on the link, right click, copy link address, or if you click on it, it'll open and you can copy the URL from the address. I've right clicked on that link and I'll do copy link address into NotebookLM, and that is my first link. This source is equal to ChatGPT. It's not really necessary, but it won't harm either. And then to the next one, and number 6. So those are the first set of links that represent from Ireland to the United States, and then I want my second set of links, so I'll just scroll down and start with here. So now I have my links in here. I'll click the insert box and it starts working on importing them. You can see that one with the check mark has already come in. There's another one. It'll take a few minutes. So NotebookLM has finished its import. And as I scroll my eye down, I notice it had a problem with one. Notice that this is highlighted in pink. The others have the check mark against them. This has an information icon. And if I hover over the information icon, it tells me that this URL type is not supported. So I'm just hovering over the main box now and I'm looking at the actual URL. Go back into ChatGPT. I'll just do a Control F and I'll search for Scholar Space. So it's this article here. If I click now on the link and see what happens when I go to it directly, yeah, I can't see what the problem it has with it. But the website is offering this as a download. It's got the download button here. It is just a PDF. So I will download it to my local machine. Click that download button. Hit save. I will go back over here and I will remove it. Hit more, remove source, delete, and I will add it explicitly. So click the add button, and now instead of providing the link, I'm going to upload it as a source. Upload. Where did it go? It was this staying accessible. Click open, and there it's bringing it in. And now it doesn't have a problem. It's managed to get a hold of that. Okay, so that's it in terms of bringing the sources in. And now I want to do what this has all been leading up to, the in-depth audio podcast and the video overview. We're going to customize and generate the audio podcast now. The audio and video options are over here, but be careful that you don't click anything, because if you click the box, it'll just go ahead and generate the audio overview with the defaults, and you can't stop it. And we want to give custom instructions and a prompt, and not just take the defaults. First, we'll do the audio overview. Hover over the audio overview box and click the pencil icon. First of all, what do you want in terms of the format? NotebookLM recently added some new formats, critique and the debate. I don't want either of these. I want default one, which is this deep dive. So I'm going to choose the longer length. The default is about, I think it's about 20 minutes maybe. I want longer. I've given it a lot of material after all. And now I want to give it a custom prompt to guide it in terms of the presentation and what to focus on. Back to my prompt pack. Here is the prompt for the audio podcast. I'll step to it here because it's easier to read than in that little box in NotebookLM. So just to explain, the format of the audio podcast is two presenters discussing a topic with each other, and it's useful to give them both personas. So I have one presenter is Professor of History who specialises in migration from Ireland to the United States. One presenter is an expert genealogist who is researching the migration journey of Annie Gamble. Next line is the topic: create an audio podcast on the historical and social reasons why Annie Gamble emigrated from County Cavan in Ireland to New York City in 1867, and by 1874 had settled in Westfield, Union County, New Jersey. Most of the sources are the historical and social context, but two are specific to the life stories of Annie Gamble and her husband. So tell it that. And now I'm going to tell it what I want it to focus on. Focus on conditions for Irish immigrants in New York in the 1860s, push factors for leaving New York, pull factors for Westfield and Union County at that time, and how broader history connects to this woman's likely experience. Next line is once again just steering it away from assuming the worst. Do not assume that she lived in poverty. The couple are financially comfortable by the end of their lives. Ultimately, I do want to relate it back to my own interests, so I'm telling it to keep it personal and that Annie Gamble is my blood relative in my family tree. The next two items are optional. I don't expect the AI to have any trouble with the pronunciation of the first name and last names of the two people involved. However, it has had trouble with the pronunciation of the place name Cavan, at times calling it Cavan or Cavan. But how do you tell an AI by text how to pronounce a name? Well, the easiest thing to do is to ask another AI on what the instructions should be. So I will scroll down to my next prompt, and that is a prompt for ChatGPT. I want to provide an AI with the correct pronunciation of Cavan and then just give it context to say that this is a county in Ireland, because the word could be a different pronunciation in some other context. So I'll copy this, Control C, over to ChatGPT, paste, and submit. And this is why I wanted the instructions from ChatGPT, because it is giving me the phonetic instructions. So, putting all that together, back into my audio podcast prompt, and if you're following along, you will have changed the names and geographical details. And if you're wondering about the titles of the sources, there is the title of my Annie Gamble source. Rename, it's giving me the full title. If the title that you gave it was kind of off the screen, go to More and rename source, and you'll get the full name it gave it. Okay, so just back into audio overview, back hitting the pencil icon, and I want a deep dive, I want it longer. I'm going to go over to my prompt, I'm going to copy these details here, paste here, and then into ChatGPT to get the instructions for pronouncing Cavan. And I'll just stick that at the end. Okay, so now I'm going to hit generate. And if you watch over here, a little bit of activity happens, and then you'll see generating audio come back in a few minutes. And a few minutes, by the way, could be 20 to 30 minutes. For a longer audio like we've chosen, it can take quite a while to generate. So while that's working on generating the audio, we may as well go and create a video overview as well. Because it's shorter, they tend to come in at 8 or 9 minutes. It's going to be more general, but it can be quite interesting as a contrast with the more in-depth audio podcast. Click on the little pencil icon and you get less options here, but we want to provide a custom prompt here. And it will be simpler than the one I provided the audio overview. I'll go over to my prompt pack. Here is the video explainer prompt. I start by telling the AI that the audience are hobby genealogists, like me, with a woman called Annie Gamble in their family trees. I keep the paragraph of what the focus should be. I keep the lines about the sources, but I've simplified what it should cover. I'm telling it to start with her emigration from Ireland to New York and to finish with the couple migrating from New York City to Westfield Union County, New Jersey. And then extra line about just don't assume they live in poverty and keep the tone informative but also personal. So I will copy this here. I will go back into ChatGPT to grab the pronunciation, paste at the end, and I will hit generate. And as you can see, that's kind of starting there and in comes generating video. That may finish before the audio overview. As I said, it can take 20 minutes to half an hour. Sometime later, everything's finished. Let's take a quick look at what we've got. Over here, we have, this is the audio podcast. For both audio and video, you have the options to play them in the browser, or you can download them both to your local machine and play them there. The podcast is, let's have a look, 38 minutes, and the video is, I'll just hit play there. You can expand this to full screen, is 6 minutes, 35 seconds. Personally, I find the in-depth audio to be the reason to do all this. It's quite incredible. You'll be more interested in your own, but I'll give you a little taster of what you can expect, and so you understand the reasons behind my prompt. Here's the opening. Remember, I told the AI that I was a relative, and that does inform the presentation.
We're meticulously tracing the footsteps of Annie Gamble. Now, Annie is a direct relative of our listener, which makes this incredibly special.
And why did I give two personas, a historian and a genealogist? Did that work? Again, from the opening.
And as a historian, specializing in Irish migration to the U.S., I find her story particularly compelling. Why?
And as an expert genealogist who's had the privilege of...
You get the idea. It lets them frame this as a back and forth dialogue, and it just makes it more entertaining. And what about all the work we did to provide the sources? Well, the podcast is based
on detailed historical accounts of Irish immigrant women's lives.
Yeah, some really excellent scholarship there.
And of course, wonderfully rich local histories of Union County and Westfield, New Jersey.
Yep, that's tiny Westfield mentioned right there. And just to show that this isn't a generic account of an immigrant to New York.
Annie arrived in 1867, and for a significant period until 1874, that's where she made her life.
I'll leave that there because you'll want to discover what yours is like. I'll be really interested if you come back and leave a comment about how it went for you. So then, what about the video? It is short, 6 to 7 minutes. So obviously a high-level overview versus the podcast. You can click play here. In my case, I've downloaded it to my local machine and I'll play a snippet.
So if you're a genealogist, you've probably got someone like Annie Gamble in your family tree.
So notice the little boat. And no, the boat doesn't move. There's no animation. Just calling your attention to it because I'm going to show you something later.
Our story starts right here with Annie herself.
I skipped forward because I want to show you an anomaly. Plane, 1867. But the next clip I'm going to show you is more impressive, and I think it's where the technology is going.
I mean, this picture says it all, doesn't it? On one side, you've got the reality of the industrial city. It's dense, it's loud, it's crowded.
So Cranford is in New Jersey, next door to Westfield. It's actually where the couple got married. And what the AI has done is it's reached in to the source material we gave it and it's pulled out these photos. And I think it's heading towards doing a lot more of that, or at least I hope. So that's it, and that's the lengthy tutorial. So if you've got this far, well done. Leave a comment saying you hung on in there. If this is your intro to NotebookLM, check out my playlist. I've got other tutorials and doing other cool stuff with the product, and I'm still exploring everything I can offer. Like, subscribe, and best of luck with your family research.